Good afternoon, though I want to say good evening after hearing that beautiful music. And welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Diego. I am the Reverend Justine Sullivan, one of the ministers here, and it is my honor to welcome you here to celebrate the life and mourn the death of Georganne and Mike Hoctor. They loved each other for over 60 years. And though, of course, it has been painful to lose them both, there is something incredibly beautiful about their being together almost to the very end of their lives, dying within just a few days of each other. So today we remember them with love. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe that this space is made sacred by our presence here, by the love that is present and shared in this space and time. And we mark that sacred space and time by lighting our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, the flame reminding us that the spark of the divine dwells within each of us, and the chalice itself reminds us that we are held in love. Come, let us be together in worship and in celebration of two lives well lived.
I invite you now to rise in body or spirit, and we're going to sing together a beloved hymn, number 1064, Blue Boat Home.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my glad and I can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. Universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. My universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
I invite up now Brandon Hall and Mike Dorfey and members of the Men's Fellowship who will lead us in a ritual to honor Mike.
Lovers, friends, I come to you starved for all that you have to give. Nourished by the food of solitude, a good instrument for all that you have to tell me, for all I have to tell you. We talk of first and last things, we sing and listen to music together. We climb the long hill to the cemetery and take another road in spring toward newborn. No one comes into this circle in this house who has not changed, and I meet no one here who does not change me.
Mike Hoctor changed me. I was in a support group with Mike for the last 3 years, and 6 or 7 of us would meet weekly. And the one striking thing about Mike is the image of his face and a smile. It wasn't so much he would put on a smile or just smile. It's like he was in a state of joy, and it would just kind of beam out of him. You know? And that's the everlasting image I'll have of Mike. A good man, a dear man, and a good member of our brotherhood.
Tom Winnett, a member of our fellowship from up north, wrote this about 20 years ago, and we've been using it for the men who have passed away that have been members of the fellowship. When I say loud and clear so all can hear, please call out Mike Hoctor's name. Tom wrote, "Brothers, when it is time to affix my name to the box, sound the chalice, light the flame, and call out my name loud and clear so all could hear. Mike Hoctor. Raise your voices in strength to claim me for the ages as one who loved and lived, laughed and cried. And in those moments, when my face or my name crosses your thoughts, remember me for the time shared, the love dared. Love me for my heart as I have loved you." We do a chant when the Spirit moves us. And it may be on the board, yes. We'll sing it through twice. We are going on a journey together, taking it easy, taking it slow. No more hurries, no more worries, nothing to carry, let it all go. We are going on a journey together, taking it easy, taking it slow. No more worries, no more worries, nothing to carry, let it all go.
I want to invite us to just take a moment of silence and stillness as we prepare our hearts to hear the soul sketch from Mike and Georganne. Blessed be. Today, we honor the lives of two beloved and unique people who journeyed together for over 60 years, Michael Bruce Hoctor and Georganne Jackman Hoctor. Together, Mike and Georganne raised a family. They made lasting friendships and shared many adventures. And it feels fitting that we remember them today, both as individuals, but also in their shared life together. Michael Bruce Hoctor was born on July 12th, 1935, to Neva Lois Spalding Hoctor Morgan and Frederick Charles Hoctor in Goldendale, Washington. After graduating high school in Goldendale, he attended Washington State University. After that, he taught for 3 years in the public schools before he decided to return for graduate school to Washington State University to earn his master's degree in counseling and guidance. While he was in school for his master's, he met Georganne, and their enduring love began to blossom. Mike served as the director of housing and residential life for nearly 28 years at San Diego State University. When he retired, he embraced his passion for making art, especially painting. Many family members, neighbors, and friends have been gifted those paintings. Mike also loved his pets, especially his dogs, his Dalmatian, Tilly, his Jack Russell Chihuahua mix, Danny K, and Georganne's Wheaton Scotty, Gwyneth Ann, also known as Gwenny. Mike was considerate, loyal, creative, kind, and gentle. He thrived at connecting with people, not just knowing their name, but knowing their stories. According to his daughters, he was the kind of person that you looked up to, who always had wisdom and advice to offer. Now, Mike and Georganne and their family came to this church when they moved to San Diego in 1970. They were each leaders in their own right in the church. Mike served on the board and the kitchen cabinet. He taught religious education. He was active in leadership development. He was part of the men's fellowship and a devoted member of his men's support group. Georganne Jackman Hoctor was born on May 8, 1942 in Spokane, Washington, to Alice Dora Betts Jackman and George Albert Jackman. After graduating from Central High School in Spokane, she attended Washington State University, where she earned her bachelor's degree and met her beloved Mike. She was first and foremost a supportive and engaged mother to her daughters, Darlene and Michelle. After many years of raising a family, she managed a stationery store, Tam's, and a Hallmark store where she cultivated lifelong friendships with her coworkers. After her career in management, she decided to go back to school, and she went to San Diego State University, where she earned her California teaching credential and a Master's of Art in Reading Education. She taught second grade at Central Elementary in the National School District, and she was passionate about bringing the outdoors into her classroom. In her retirement, she put her love of nature into being a docent for many years, and she served on the board of the Natural History Museum in Balboa Park. Georganne had a strong sense of social justice. She was active in the efforts to desegregate the San Diego City schools, and along with Mike, agreed to have their youngest daughter named as a plaintiff in the Carlin case. She was passionate, supportive, creative, bold, self-reliant, and an avid learner. She had a wry sense of humor. She loved to tease and to banter. Georganne was a self-taught gourmet cook and also a self-taught knitter, creating many beautiful things like sweaters and blankets. Here at the church, Georganne taught in religious education. She supported youth and adults. She was active with the UU Women's Federation, and she was a devoted member of the Women's Friday Club. This past December, Mike and Georganne died peacefully, just 5 days apart. They shared a remarkable journey of 62 years, built on mutual respect, on admiration, and on love. They will be deeply missed by so many, but especially their loving family, their daughters, Darlene, Hoctor, Molmet, and Michelle Hoctor, their grandchildren, Francine Thompson, Bruce Molmet, and Abby Molmet, along with countless nieces and nephews, and their beloved Scotty Frisky. Today we come together to remember, to celebrate, and to honor the lives of Mike and Georganne. Blessed be. I now have Abby, Mike, and Georganne's grandchild to offer a reading.
Then a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." He answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the selfsame well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more you can contain. Is it not the cup that holds your wine, the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is it not the lute that soothes your spirit, the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again at your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Thank you.
And we're moving into the time in our service where we'll have family and friends sharing remembrances. The primary ways that we grieve is by sharing our stories. And so I invite up first Ms. Shan to share with us.
It's so beautiful to see you all here today. Thank you. All right. As I look around the room, I see 2 lifetimes of cultivated connections. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for my parents and what they taught me about connections and relationships, and I'm grateful for you all being here. My parents were brilliant, loving, ordinary people who lived extraordinary lives through the connections they made with all of us. When my parents got married, my father promised my mom that he would always love her. And in return, my mom promised him that she would make life interesting. And she did. Oh, she did. Some of my fondest memories of my mother include some of the following. She taught me to hold close the world in wonder. Wherever we traveled, near or far, she would identify the flora and fauna that we were seeing. Included trips to the beach in Mexico, to the beach here, and many in the car, where she read aloud to us from many different books, one of which was my favorite, turned out to be my favorite because of the experience with my mom, which was the last of the really great Whangdoodles. And I highly recommend it. She was incredibly creative, as you heard, being a self-knitter, crocheter. We were the recipients of her amazing meals, not just weeknights, but so many different holidays with our extended family. She knitted and crocheted many different things, including a blue ribbon awarded sweater and hat that her granddaughter Francine asked her to make. And she entered into the Del Mar Fair. San Diego County Fair, I think is what they call it now. Forever mind, the Del Mar Fair. She sewed many of our clothes when we were young children, including these faux fur coats. Just amazing detail, and just so thankful for all of the things that she made us, including dresses for a fashion show. Who knew? As you heard, she was very engaged in our lives. She drove us to dance. In fact, she taught us new ways of navigating. Some of you won't remember this book, but there was something called the Thomas Brothers. And it was a book of maps. And so whenever she would pick us up from school and we needed to go someplace, she would pull out the Thomas Brothers and hand it to whomever yelled shotgun and got the front seat, and would say, "Find us a new way to get there." My sense of San Diego is very strong. dad was my safe haven. He comforted me from day one. My mom would push us and love us through that pushing, and my dad would comfort us. I'll never forget when I was 6 and had scarlet fever, and although he couldn't feel much better, he patted me and told me it would be okay. He was also my advisor, sharing hard truths and advice, whether solicited or not. But always supportive and pushing me to make choices that stood true to who I am and the values that I hold dear. He was an avid reader, always sharing books and magazines. He would keep them and write my name on the front, and I would find a stack of things to read anytime I visited. We had many different and deep conversations about politics and values and the meaning of life and what our purpose is. He taught me to love four-legged and two-legged beings in this world, and I took after him, bringing strength. Much to my mother's chagrin, although she always was quick to figure out the best biome for any animal that I might have come across, like a sphinx moth pupa. As you heard, my dad was a leader in this church and in many other ways. He taught me the value of servant leadership, and as I mentioned, how deeply important relationships and connections are. And I carry that with me to this day. Through his long career at San Diego State, a place where I feel like I grew up, visiting him many different times, and I carry that legacy on through the love of student housing and through a love of Aztec football and basketball. Go Aztecs! He was a very steady soul who loved us all and my mother very, very much. Thank you.
I invite up Bruce, grandchild of Mike and Georganne.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. It really puts into perspective how many people my grandparents affected in a positive way. Without Mike and Georganne, I wouldn't be the man I am today. Both of them valued education highly, took me on a trip to Washington State my junior year, where they met. We've talked about that already. I fell in love with the campus, and going there is one of the best decisions I ever made. If I didn't let them take me to Pullman, I'd have a much smaller worldview, and I wouldn't have the opportunities I do today. Both of them gave me opportunities to fall in love with history, and were always willing to give me advice when I asked for it. Anytime I expressed an interest in something, they were all in with me. They fostered my love of art. Ever since moving back to California, I spent almost every Sunday painting with Gramps. He encouraged me to start taking lessons to improve and try new things in my hobby. Hasn't worked that well, but I'm still trying. I will be forever grateful for his support. During those Sundays, we ate lunch, usually from Woodstock's, a local pizza place. I'd enjoy the meal with Gramps and Grammy, and our conversations would wander from topic to topic, with Grammy and I exchanging verbal barbs depending on our beliefs. It was always a pleasure to be challenged in this way, and I think that describes Grammy well. Willing to argue her point and listen to others even if she disagrees, sometimes better than others. Gramps and Grammy supported me through all my trials and tribulations. They were kind and helpful people. I will miss them now they are gone. Thank you for your time.
Linda will join us, Mike's sister.
Good afternoon. I am Mike's youngest sibling, Linda Amadon, and while there were 4 of us, there's only 2 remaining, and I promise not to talk long for each 4 of us. I will share my sister Susie's memories first. This is from Susan B. Early in 2024, Mike lost his friend and companion, Danny Kay, and shared with Susie how much he missed his little dog. She asked for a picture of them, and Mike sent one of Danny Kay and Mike's huge shadow. She commented to him on the picture's high paintability, and Mike was delighted to know he had concocted such a unique design. Sue made him a picture called a T-print using different media. It is on display with the other memorabilia. Susie remembers Mike coming home from school as a teen and asking our hard-working farm wife mother, "Don't you ever clean up after these kids?" Susie and I were both under the age of 5 and would unload our toy cupboard and our ottoman of books and toys every day. One of Susie's fond memories is our stay with Michael on the WSU campus. We swam, ate campus food, and enjoyed ourselves immensely. In the early 1970s, Susie moved to San Diego and lived with Michael and Georganne for a while. After a time, she married, and when they divorced, Mike asked her how to live alone. He stated he would miss Georganne too much, and Susie said theirs was a great love. When Susie and Paul B. were married and had Hannah, Uncle Mike would come and make special deliveries as Santa to Hannah, much to her delight. Susie missed Michael and Georganne after moving back to Goldendale, Washington following Paul's death, seeing them only at major family functions. The last opportunity was in 2019 at our oldest sister Patty's celebration of life. Susie is here in spirit and wishes the family well. Mike and Georganne ran the good race. And now my thoughts. Mike Hoctor was an excellent big brother. He was a joy to my childhood and will be sorely missed. Michael Bruce Hoctor was born July 12, 1935, at home in Goldendale, Washington, to Fred Hoctor and Lois Spalding Hoctor. He was the second of 5 children and the oldest son. He was the descendant of Oregon Trail pioneers and Irish immigrants. His ancestors were early settlers in Klickitat County and consisted of a Civil War veteran, farmers, a preacher, a postmaster, and civic-minded folks. Being a child of the Depression meant times were tough. When Mike was about 2, he and our sister Patty, with our mother, lived in a tent with our dad while he worked on what they called the Tramp Gang, building Highway 14, the main road on the southern end of Washington. Mike and our oldest sister Patty were close. She was 2 years older, precocious and bossy. Stories had it that Mike put up with her demands for 3 or 4 years until he had had it. And then he chased her all over our grandmother's hillside with a wooden shoe. In 1938, our father bought a 520-acre ranch 12 miles east of Goldendale. There was no running water or indoor plumbing. Electricity was years away. Our mother had to carry water from a spring and cook over a wood stove. Excuse me. The kids were expected to help with water and firewood. In his history of our family, Mike wrote that one hot summer morning, when he was 8 years old, he defied Mom's directive to fill the kitchen wood box and ran off down the hill and hid in a willow tree. After a short while, he was hungry and had a change of heart. When he returned to tell her he'd changed his mind, the wood box was already filled and a piece was used to warm his hind end. In his words, it was a learning experience. In spite of significant age differences, Mike engaged with each of his siblings. He was the brother who would run under the swings to give us a thrill, stayed with me on a Christmas Eve when I was ill, and taught me how to tie my shoes. Mike was a good student, active in high school. He was involved in nearly everything: school plays, student organizations, and anything fun. the plays involved a hand puppet that was a snake that came behind the curtain. I was 3 or 4 and it scared the willies out of me. As the oldest son, the hope and expectation was that Mike would be a farmer like our dad. However, childhood health issues and interests dictated a different future for him. Of course, experiences like forgetting to set the handbrake on the tractor and having to chase it down the hill and having the long sycamore cut small animals did not encourage his love of farming. Our dad was disappointed but did not discourage Michael from going to college. He then hoped his oldest boy would be a doctor. My understanding is Mike couldn't get his head around being Dr. Hoctor. Michael continued his pattern of being very active. He attended college. He held offices in his resident hall, as well as being involved in numerous campus activities and the activities board. He worked hard to supplement his college expenses as a resident hall advisor, and at least one summer, he worked on a lookout at Mosquito Lake in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. We were able to visit him for a camping and huckleberry experience. Huckleberry picking. After college, Mike became a teacher in Longview, Washington. I have fond memories of helping him grade papers on Christmas break. After school was out, we visited him, and my sister and I had our first opportunity to see the Pacific Ocean. As charming as teenagers can be, my sister Susie called it a two-bit ocean. After my 8th grade year, Susie and I were not looking forward to the long summer on the farm. Mother talked with Mike, and he allowed us to visit him for 2 weeks on campus at WSU, where he was working on his master's degree. That was a great 2 weeks. We were able to wander the campus, enjoying the creamery, having access to the WSU library, where my love of reading began, learning to swim and being introduced to jazz. I can never hear Dave Brubeck's Time Out without thinking of that time. And Mike listened to us, asking about our interests and questioning about what we wanted to do and why. After Mike graduated his master's program, he and Georganne were married. They were a great team, and she was tolerant as they followed Mike's career to Illinois, Colorado, and Texas. Those were busy years for them as they welcomed their lovely daughters, Darlan and Mishan. They were active, involved parents and community members. The results of their efforts were 2 highly successful young women and a long, fulfilling marriage. Our visits were few and between during the busy family years. When the opportunity arose for an occasional visit, Mike and Georganne were welcoming and generous hosts. We visited in 1984, and they opened their home to us, shared their event passes, and were tour guides. Georganne gave our young sons some delightful activities to help entertain them on our travels. Our daughters had a great time engaging with their cousins. Wonderful trip and memories. Michael would visit family whenever his business trips brought him close by. One of his trips occurred in the winter, but he made a point of visiting our mom in Goldendale, Washington. At the same time, a bitter cold storm came down from Canada. He told her that he would never be able to visit her in the winter again, as he couldn't endure the cold. And the picture there is that trip, and he's clearing off the car and loading his suitcases as fast as he could. He took an exception in 2007 when our brother Fred suffered a health crisis. Mike came from Portland to help Fred sort out his needs and put them in place. A true effort of love. Mike and George were so proud of their daughters and doted on their grandchildren. And active with family trips and organization. I enjoyed our phone conversations, and his generosity in sharing books and magazines of interest were astounding. My husband Chuck and I are extremely grateful that we made the trip to visit Mike and Georganne last spring. Once again, their hospitality was amazing and the visit exceptional. They will be missed. Thank you.
Please remain seated for this song of comfort. We do invite you to join us in singing after the first time through. We continue with our remembrances, and I invite up Tracy as family friend. Tracy? Fabulous.
Well, my name is Tracy Velez, as you know. When they asked me to speak, I really thought it was just going to be in family. I didn't expect, well, I knew Mike knew a lot of people, but I didn't expect this crowd. I'm a bit of a recluse, so I'm feeling a little uncomfortable being around so many people. 3 people is pretty much as I can take, but today for Mike and family, it's something that we agreed that I would do prior. You know, in order for me to feel comfortable in speaking about Mike and Georganne, I'd like to do an exercise. You know, in combat, they do a breathing exercise called box breathing. In order for me to speak freely about and share some of the things that I spoke about in 1 hour every week for 3 days for more than 2 decades of sitting in a garage, just speaking freely, I need for you guys to do an exercise for me. And that exercise is called box breathing. I don't have the time to go through how it works, but I will say that the human being works on 2 nervous systems, parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. In the times that we share right now, we're all under the sympathetic nervous system. It's fight and flight. I want to do this because in order for me to feel comfortable, I need to get you guys in the parasympathetic, which is rest and relaxation. So what I want you to do is take in a deep breath for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and breathe it out for 4 seconds. Now, this is supposed to be done for 4 times, box breathing, but we don't have that type of time. And so on the exhale, what I'd like for you guys to do is blow it out through your nose, mouth, it doesn't matter, for as long as you can stand. That will hopefully make me feel comfortable and put you guys at ease to where you can hear some of the volumes of stories within 10 minutes or less. My wife asked me, she says, let's get the exercise done first. When you guys ready, again, 4 seconds inhalation, hold it for 4 seconds, and then blow it out for 4 seconds. And that 4 seconds exhale, blow it out. Even if you feel like you're not blowing any air, continue to do so till you cannot do it anymore, and then relax. Let's go. All right. Where do you start? I think I'm going to start with Georganne. You know, I moved on the block, I can't remember, it's more than 2 decades, on Adelaide Avenue. And I would see Mike with this little dog walk up and down the block with his cane, stick. And every day, Mike is walking Danny Kaye with that stick. And one day I asked him, I said, why are you walking with the stick? You seem to be walking perfectly fine. And he says, I don't know. And I said, get rid of the stick, Mike. And he did. To my surprise, he got rid of the stick, and it shocked me. One day, Mike and I and Georganne were walking up and down the block with dogs. And as you well know, Mike stops and talks to everyone, to the point where Georganne and I continue to walk as Mike spoke to whomever would listen. The reason why I want to start with Georganne, because she said something to me in that walk so profound. It shed a serious light into our walking to the house. And out of the blue, I think we might have been talking about, who knows, the weather or something. Out of the blue, she stops and she looks at me and she says something I can't remember verbatim, but she said something that had to do with the universe. And I stopped and I looked at her in astonishment as to how could she know something so insightful as that. And that stayed with me for a very long time. For months I thought, what is it about this woman? My now ex-wife. I spoke to her about that, and she couldn't understand it as well. I have 2 confessions to make. My first confession is training Mike, or scratch that, or as you were. My workout partner. Times a week for 1 hour or more. Forget about holidays, weekends, we're doing it 3 times a week, no matter what it falls on, Mike. So I'd like to share some conversation, many conversations, but just a few that really stood out. My confession is I used Mike as an experiment. I used Mike as an experiment, one that he was well aware of. I reminded him constantly, this is an experiment and nothing but an experiment. And the experiment was this. While everybody has their dreams and aspirations and goals, bucket lists, and alike, my only goal, aspiration, and desire was, as I was talking to Mike, and keep in mind, these are conversations as if me talking to Mike, not you, illustrious audience we have here. The experiment was, I wanted to be able to communicate with whomever, Mike, without the vehicle of words. Now, most people would hear that and start to walk away from me. It's like, it's crazy. But Mike asked, what are you talking about, Tracy? And I said, from a show of hands, how many of out here has experienced the NDE, near-death experience, or brought back? Wow, incredible. That right there puts me deeper in parasympathetic nervous system. So you well know, when I say speak without the vehicle of words, and to communicate without the influence of thought. Mike didn't understand that at the time. And so the experiment was to get him, or as you were, the experiment was to see if such an accomplishment could be had. So for 12 years out of the 20, the last 12 years, that was the goal. Once, 3 times a day, 1 hour of physical fitness, but the primary goal was the experiment. We talked about how a single-cell organism can become a multi-cell organism, higher levels of magnitude, the human being. We talked about the heart and how the heart is superior than the brain. We talked a lot about the brain. Brain chemistry, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, dopamine. We talked about how dopamine is the primary function of why we even have any drive at all. Mike was curious about that. We talked about the constituent parts of the brain. We talked about how when we are stuck in our emotions, free will is negated. about the amygdala, the emotional part of the brain, and how through the environment we are all stressed out and hyper agitated. We talked about the mind outside of the brain. Now, a lot of you guys are going to ask, what is Mike's favorite topic? Every single person would say history or reading books. But I have a secret. Mike's favorite topic was physics. Surprise. So we talked about the mind. Delve deep into consciousness, deep. We talked about how the brain is lazy and the brain's function is only to keep us alive and to conserve energy. That's how habits are formed. The brain just wants to do the easiest thing to conserve energy and not do any work. We left the biological body and started to talk about psychology and how our environment shapes who we are, how genes are expressed because of that environment. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
I just want to be mindful. We have a few other things to share.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I appreciate that. I could get carried away in New York. I could speak. Let me share two things, and I apologize deeply. One day, as we were working out, Mike was sitting down. He had finished a set of curls, and we're talking about consciousness. And he says, Tracy, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to remember any of this. I put my both hands, Mike was sitting, I pulled my chair up, I sat in front, I put my hands on both his shoulders and says, Mike, do you really think I was talking to you and we were talking to each other all this time? The fact that you even are stressed out about this speaks volumes. I told Mike, you are my Neo, if you've ever seen Matrix. Mike, you are my Neo. And this communication that we had, I was talking and you was talking to each one of our souls. And Mike, to be honest, I'm looking at your soul, and what your soul is doing as I'm speaking is doing this. Boring. Because, Mike, forget about what you as a biological creature knows. Don't worry about it. This is only a reminder of what you already know. One more minute. The most important. Recently, and when I say recently, probably months ago, we had finished working out. And Mike, I'm going to share something with you that I've only shared with my wife. I said, Mike, I want to write a book. And Mike turns and says, Tracy, do it. You can do it. You can do it. And I said, Mike, I've been things down. As my wife could attest, I have composition books everywhere, with some with just one word in it, some with many words. And I can't do it. He says, why? I said, Mike, in 6th grade, me with my friends running around the school and having fun, we used to tease the mentally challenged people, kids, all the time. One day, Mike, I found myself in that class. I have a GED, Mike. I don't feel like I'm smart enough to write a book. And that's why for more than 40 years, me being 61 now, more than 40 years, I've never had the aptitude to write this book. Mike, I want to write a book about before my birth. Now, most people, again, would walk away from me at this point. Mike looks at me and he says, well, Tracy, that's going to be a little bit harder to do. I laughed at that. Stitches. If laughter could cause a tidal wave, we'd all be fishes. That's how hard we laughed. Thank you for the time. Oh, one more thing. Isn't that typical? I have it right here. Sir, I finished that book.
Thank you. Invite up Linda Stendy, family friend.
Well, can you hear me? I'm Linda Stendy, and along with my husband John and our 3 daughters, we were the next door neighbors of the Hoctor family. And in the words of Shara, our oldest daughter, the Stendy family sure scored big when Mike and Georganne moved next door to us in 1975. I can hardly believe that that was 50 years ago. I still remember the day that 2 cute little girls rang. We're neighbors. Darlene was 11 and Mishan was 9. And Shara, our oldest daughter, I was pregnant at the time, was born a few months later. And as far back as our 3 daughters remember, Mike and George, extended family next door. Neither the Stendy girls nor the Hoctor girls had cousins or uncles in town, but our girls had something wonderful, the Hoctor family next door. We soon lowered the fence, literally, in our 2 yards, pulling down the, what do you call, Hillendale fencing or whatever, and then John put in a gate, and years later, Darlene gave us a small wall hanging that we placed by our back door that said, "Back door neighbor best." That just about summed it up. We soon came to be celebrating Christmas and Thanksgiving together, and Georganne was our adventuresome, never making the same recipe twice, which was sometimes frustrating because we liked it and not going to make it again. Really. One year, Shara got her to make turducken for Thanksgiving. If you don't know what that is, it's a deboned chicken and a duck inside a deboned turkey. Yeah. Shara says it was delicious, but anyway, I tried my best to keep up, but my pie crusts were pre-made by Pillsbury, so it was a little bit impossible. But the favorite memory of Kari, our middle daughter, was that dinner was always followed by very competitive games of Pictionary, Pygmania, Taboo, Trivial Pursuit, and we always ended up with a group photo taken by Mike, where he gathered everyone carefully together and did like a time exposure and getting the whole group in the photo. So many memories. I can remember Georganne and I over the fence, our lowered fence, as she coped with the trials of living with teenagers and I coped with toddlers. But somehow, even then, I did know that she'd have the last laugh because by the time I had teenagers to contend with, she'd have nice grown-up adult children, which was true. She was also our medical for both our children and our animals. She diagnosed Kari's chickenpox, and she also with our cat after he got into a cat fight and had all these claw things, and you don't want to. Anyway, Georganne knew about all that stuff. Georganne and Mike were always available next door for visits from our kids. Kari remembers Georganne always telling her to eat her leafy green vegetables, and Mike and Georganne giving her and Shara so many saltines with butter that finally we had the girls go back home to get permission from me to eat anymore. There were also these at our girls' dance recitals, plays, graduations, other events, and then later weddings, baby showers. John will always remember the night Mike recruited 6 of his young, strong dorm advisors to pick up and carry to our roof the huge, heavy beam that was needed for our second-story addition. Without the help of his strong guys, we would have needed a crane, and instead done in 15 minutes. We also appreciated all the years of dog sitting and trips to the airport and all the zillion trips where we received emails from Mike. Have fun, I've got it covered, mails, plant, newspapers, recycling. Mike and Georganne were there for us. Georganne was a teacher for all of us. Annie, our youngest daughter, remembers learning how to make cactus fruit jam with Georganne, and the summer that Annie was 9, Georganne planned a whole kind of activity for the two of them, including embroidering Christmas ornaments and creating a stuffed animal from scratch, including teaching Annie how to sew all of its clothes. Our whole family a gift when she patiently helped me to knit a personalized Christmas stocking complete with snowmen for Chloe, our first grandchild. At the time, my previous knitting was a bad experience knitting an 8 square, it was pink, when I was a 10-year-old Girl Scout that took me probably 6 months to do. Not only did she have to reteach me how to knit, but first to figure out the whole design without a pattern. And of course, she did it, and I wrote detailed instructions down step by step so I could follow. And I've since gone on to make stockings, personalized ones for our grandkids, daughters, sons-in-laws, and even a few granddogs. Along with Mike and the girls, there was always the Scottish Terrier members. First Babe, then Pepper, Tessie, and then Gwenny, who was actually white. She was a Highland Terrier, but she kind of looked like a white Scottie. And Frisky, who was another Scottie, and also Mike's one special Dalmatian, Tilly, and the Chihuahua, Danny Kay. So they were important. Georganne was a very dedicated second grade teacher, and she sometimes dragged us into her projects. A typical teacher might bring a few silkworms to her classroom to show her students. Georganne had a herd, literally. She gave Annie the task of feeding mulberry leaves to them while they were on a vacation at spring break. Annie and I will never forget the sound of entering their dining room and hearing the cacophony of noise of 300 silkworms chewing. We'll remember that. Maybe the most magical gift for our family was that for 20 years, Mike brought Santa Claus to our family. To keep the illusion continuing longer, when 4-year-old Kari said, "Santa's hands look like Mike's," who knows that a 4-year-old would know what Mike's hands look like? The next year, Santa came wearing gloves. Literally, 20 years he came. Obviously, after my kids were, they still believed. And then he returned again in 2017 when 5 of our grandchildren met our Santa. Outside our front door, there was always a sign that said, "We believe in Santa Claus." And it was magic. It was a life gift to us to have Mike and Georganne, as well as Darlene and Mishan, as the best next-door neighbors ever. For 50 years, they have been a part of our family, and they are part of our children's growing up from the very start.
I invite up Gary Little.
You may be delighted to know that when I was asked to do this, I was asked to make my remarks about in 3 or 4 minutes, and I will endeavor to do that. But I think after all the words and stories and love that's been expressed today about Mike and Georganne, you would probably all agree with me that the world has just lost one of its greatest players. The game of life lost one of its greatest players. And I think it was the late, great sports one great score to mark against your name. He marks not that you won or lost, but how you played the game. In the game of life, I think Mike, I think it's been said many times today, I think Mike almost instinctively played as thoughtfully, kindly, and effectively as well as anyone I ever knew. In fact, I never heard anyone say an unkind word about Mike Hoctor. Never. He represented the best in human kindness and respect for others. I was one of those, much like family, friends, and colleagues with us today. I met Mike through our work in university housing and residential life. We shared a similar position. Mike was a willing mentor and friend. In addition to our similar positions at rival universities, we both had amazing wives and 2 daughters who we have always adored. Georganne was a perfect partner for Mike, and they shared great pride in the family they created. We enjoyed and attended many housing conferences hosted at universities across America. Mike had a wonderful sense of humor, and we had a lot of fun together, for which I could talk about a long time, and maybe embarrass a couple of my colleagues here today. As our friendship and mutual respect grew, Mike often became my first call if I needed advice or support in dealing with an issue on our campus. Most folks out of university life are unaware that student housing at most public universities is supported not by tax dollars, but by the fees that the students pay. All the things are self-supporting, and the revenue earned is not from tax funds, but from student fees. As a director, Mike had a good business sense, in addition to the professional ability to teach and guide students and staff within the San Diego State housing operations. And trust me, that can be a challenge. I think one of the few things Mike was envious of me for was university students are not known for their general praise of campus food service. I was more fortunate than Mike, not because our food service was that much better, but because our food service director that worked for us was a gentleman named Hal Espy, who had fought as a heavyweight at the Olympics. And so we had far fewer complaints than most folks. I will never forget Mike's smile and gentle laughter, his ability to listen carefully before giving advice, and his always calm presence. When I heard the news of Mike's passing, warm, soft tears effortlessly slid down my cheeks. They were warm, soft tears of sadness coupled with respect for Mike and grateful for the joy Mike gave to me and truly all who knew him. May his memory live on in our hearts today and forever, where if we can all learn to play life's game a little more like Mike, it'll be a better place. Thank you.
And now Gail Edwards for the Friday Club.
In 2004, Jan Gallo and I were talking after church, and we both discovered that we had just recently retired. I said we should start a retirement group, and Jan took the ball, and soon we were 10 retired women, including Georganne, and eventually called ourselves the Friday Club. We have been meeting in one another's homes every month now for 20 years. Some treasured members have passed away and others have moved away. We also gained new ones. But now with Georganne's death, we are down to just 5, Jan and I, Suzanne Hess, Caroline Clark, and Elizabeth Lancaster, all original members. After meeting for a couple of years, we decided to tell one another our life stories in 5-year increments. This process over many months helped us get to know each other on a deeper level. The Friday Club became a safe place for us to share our truths without being judged or thought to be crazy. I was especially moved by Georganne's account of her childhood and her complicated relationships with her mother and older sister. I admired her fighting spirit as a child. When our group hosted a church event called Dining for Dollars, Georganne made us all matching gingham aprons. Georganne endured many surgeries and health challenges. We admired her resiliency and her ability to keep on going. Once when the group was meeting at my place in Hamul, Suzanne picked up Georganne, and they didn't have my exact address or phone number with them, but they found a long driveway that looked right, and they drove up, parked, went up the steps, and opened the door and went inside. After wandering around for a while, they realized they were in the wrong house. We've had many good laughs about that. Georganne was known to have an oppositional side and what sometimes seemed like an unfiltered outspokenness. She might take offense when none was meant, but if she felt hurt or rejected, she worked hard to resolve any conflicts or issues. Once, during a period of depression, Georganne resigned from our group. Later, she had the courage to ask to return. We unanimously welcomed her back. During her time in assisted living, Georganne never gave up her dream of going home. For some people, going home means to be with God. And so, Georganne, dear friend, may God be with you till we meet again.
We've heard so many beautiful stories, and now we'll see some of Mike and Georganne's life through pictures.
Todo tiene su tiempo y todo lo que se quiere debajo del cielo tiene su hora.
To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven.
Tiempo de nacer y tiempo de morir. Tiempo de plantar y tiempo de arrancar lo plantado.
A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted.
Tiempo de matar y tiempo de curar. Tiempo de destruir y tiempo de edificar.
A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up.
Tiempo de llorar y tiempo de reír. Tiempo de desechar y tiempo de bailar.
A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance.
Tiempo de esparciar piedras y tiempo de juntar piedras. Tiempo de abrazar y tiempo de abstenerse de abrazar.
A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing.
Tiempo de buscar y tiempo de perder. Tiempo de guardar y tiempo de desechar.
A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away.
Tiempo de romper y tiempo de coser. Tiempo de callar y tiempo de hablar.
A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silent and a time to speak.
Tiempo de amar y tiempo de aborrecer. Tiempo de guerra y tiempo de paz.
A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace.
As we come to the close of our service, the family wanted us to sing together Circle Game by Joni Mitchell. So I invite you to rise and embody your spirit and join in singing.
Fearful
As we extinguish this chalice, we say farewell to our beloved Georganne and Mike. But our love for them lives on, and so they too live on in the stories we share and in the lives that we lead inspired by them. Dear Mike and Georganne, we release you from the cares of this life and from the frailty of the human body. Thank you for being here with us. Rest well. May you know peace, and may you be held in love. And to all those who mourn their deaths, may the memory of their love for each other and for all of you be a comfort to you as you journey onward. Go in peace and love.